Thank you very much for the comment. This relates to a piece that I put on a previous video, which was an Umbrian warrior figure, which looks pretty much like a hoplite, or is dressed as you might imagine a hoplite would be. This dates from between 500 and 475 BC. It's Umbrian, so it's Italian, not Greek. And yeah, if you look at it, you can see those hoplite elements to it. The crest, which has been chopped off, sorry, that was me. You can also see the cuirass, and you can see the greaves. In the previous video, I go into it a bit more detail. And you can also see the stance as well, which is really important. 1 foot forward, you've got the right hand, right arm raised high with a spear, presumably a spear. In the left hand, obviously, it's cut off there, but you presume there possibly be a shield there or something similar. And I had a look back through, and I've got some images of ones that look similar to this, again, which are from Italy, but also one which looks a bit similar and is actually from Greece. This one dates to the same period, is similar in many ways, except that we're not looking at a warrior as such. Here, we're looking at a warrior goddess, because this is Minerva. And you can see the stance is very similar. 1 foot forward, you've got the crest, you've got the helmet, you've got the spear. There's a lot of detail here. I really like how defined the body is. So you're getting a lot of sense of movement here. And there's another one that's got a slightly different detail, which is equally as interesting. This is the second one we have of Minerva. Again, it's Umbrian. It dates to the similar period, so 500 BC to 475 BC or thereabouts. Similar poise, but there's something on here which the others don't have. And you can see right dead center of Minerva's chest, you've got the aegis there. So you've got the head of the Gorgon, which is an absolute identifier of who she is. This one here also dates to the 5th century BC, and it's Etruscan. So again, Italic, or rather from the Italian peninsula. And here you've got a bit more detail, particularly in the left hand there. So you can see what looks like a way that a shield may have been attached to that hand. So again, similar stance, similar setup. And this way we can start to form a sort of general trend of these objects and understand what the other artistic representations might have looked like and sort of fill in the gaps. Because if we didn't have this, perhaps we might have thought that there wasn't necessarily a shield being able to be fixed. But it does look like there's a possibility in the end of that left hand that something could have been fixed here. So it would have possibly had a shield, and in the right hand, presumably a spear. But as I said, there's also something a bit similar to this from Greece. To start with, apologies. My photography isn't always great, but it's not always helped by some of the lighting in some of the museums. But there we go. I hope you can make out what I'm going to be talking about here, and you can probably already see what I'm getting to already. Now, once again, you have a similar stance. You have 1 foot in front of the other. In the left hand, you have a shield. This time you can actually see the shield. In the right hand, you've got presumably what would have been a spear, and you've got the helmet. And it looks similar in terms of style in some senses to the other pieces, though obviously this is a bit chunkier, it's a bit shorter. This is actually from Laconia, so this is Spartan, and it dates earlier, so 6th century BC. And I had a couple of other points, really interesting comments made on the original video, and they're related to perhaps there were trade networks going on, indicating that perhaps those other pieces have been imported. I don't think that's necessarily the case, because there seems enough of them to indicate that this was a locally created representation. Again, it might be a representation of perhaps a Greek warrior, though I think it's possibly a local warrior. We also have a deity involved there. But what we can see is that it belonged to a wider suite of what is essentially a similar representation of a warrior or someone in battle. That is to say, they've got a shield, they've got what would have been a spear, they've got a similar poise. So we have a sense of sort of a wider trend that you can observe here. The fact this was earlier is also quite interesting, because perhaps these were seen and understood, and the locals in Italy decided they want to do their own version. Again, that's pure speculation, but it's always interesting to know that lots of these objects often interact with other cultures. People are looking at other things, getting new ideas. That's a really important part of ancient history generally. People didn't do things that much in isolation. They were always looking around each other. So there was a lot more movement, a lot more travel, a lot more cultural exchange. Anyway, thanks again for the great comments on that video. I could only stitch this video to one of them, but I would have liked to have done it to a couple of the others. Thanks again, and I hope you found this useful.